Welcome to the channel and welcome to episode 10 of my solo play Grimdark Future Campaign. Now, just to make you aware, if you haven't seen the episodes before, I don't use the AI rules, I simply try to play both sides as objectively as I can. After an infestation by the Soul Snatcher cult that initially drove the orcs from the capital, the orcs rallied and retook the city, driving the Soul Snatcher cult into the surrounding areas. The human defense forces have rounded up and vanquished the scattered remnants of the Soul Snatcher cult force and are amassing to launch an assault on the capital itself. However, the forces of the Plague Disciples have infiltrated ahead of the HDF, and the orcs are responding to this new emerging threat. Now, as far as the campaign goes, the Plague Disciples need to win this game, because if the orcs win this game, nobody else can win the campaign. In terms of victory points, it will not be possible for any other army to win this campaign. If the Plague Disciples win, both they and the HDF are in with a chance of at least drawing, if not winning. The Soul Snatcher cult would need to win their last game and get a random event that gives them a victory point in order to at least draw. But that's away in the future. Right here, right now, the Plague Disciples need to win this game for anybody else to have a chance of beating the orcs. Here we have the forces of the Plague Disciples arrayed. Starting at the bottom left of the screen, we have the Touched, a unit of 5 Plague Mutant Brothers. Next to them in the centre at the bottom, we have Lord Cankerous himself. He is a Plague Champion with a Great Scythe and Destroyer Armour. He has had 2 experience upgrades. He is now a Duelist, which makes him -1 to be hit in melee, and he is a Fanatic, which gives him +1 attack in melee. Accompanying him are the Shrouded, a unit of 3 Plague Destroyers. They are armed with Poison Gauntlets and Heavy Scythes. In the bottom right of the screen, we have Puskworm Warptongue. He's a Plague Champion who is a Psychic. He's got a Heavy Pistol and a Close Combat Weapon, and accompanying him are the Determined, a unit of 5 Plague Brothers. One has a Great Scythe, one has a Plague Launcher, and the rest have heavy rifles and close combat weapons. They also have an experience upgrade. They are Resilient, so they get +1 to their save rolls, but that's just the Determined, it's not Puskworm Warptongue. Behind them, on the top right of the screen, we have the newest addition to the Plague Disciples. They are the Bearers, a combined unit of 20 Plague Zombies. The rotting corpses of all those who have been slain in the campaign so far have been infected with the virus that brings them back to life and reanimates them. Next to them in the centre at the top of the screen, we have the Faithful, a unit of 10 Plague Cultists. One of them has a machine gun, and they are accompanied by Deacon Griss, who is a Plague Cultist champion, and he has got the Plague Lord upgrade, which gives him the gift of Plague, allowing him and his unit +1 to regeneration rolls. And then finally, on the top left of the screen, we have the Bringer of Bile, a Plague Drone with 2 Plague Sprayers. And that comes to a total of 1,795 points.
I am Boss Brain Basher, that's me at the bottom there with my attack squid giggles. And I am a master of shooting frenzy, which means me and my lads get relentless. I has also been stuck back together so many times I've got a cyborg body so I can regenerate if any git tries to hit me. That's my lads with me, they's Brain Bashers boys and they's got carbines. That weird buggy looking thing down there, that's the Jet Wagon. It's a combat car and it's got a mega scrap machine gun and a chain RPG. It's also so good at shooting, it's a specialist so it gets +1 to its shooting rolls. Behind that at the back, we've got the Flaming Grabber. It's an Orc Walker with 2 Walker Claws and 2 Rapid Heavy Flamethrowers. It's also a specialist, but it's good at clobbering stuff. At the back in the middle, we've got the Flyboys, Jetpack Orcs with close combat weapons and pistols. Next to them, we've got the Runts. Oi, knock it off you little gits or I'll set giggles on ya. And next to them at the top, we've got the Sneaky Gits, Commandos. One of the Gits has got an Ultra Claw. Below them at the bottom, we've got Odd Kit, the Psychist. He's also some kind of chemist. He does stuff with weird and smelly stuff. And somehow, that makes the lads who's with him a bit braver. And tagging along with him, we've got the Gangers. More Orc lads, and one of them's got an Ultra Claw. And then behind my lads in the middle, we's got the big lads. Boss mob. I don't trust them gits, so I don't go along with them. Otherwise one of them probably gonna put a slugger shot through my head. They's all got pistols and close combat weapons, except one of them's got an ultra claw. And that's my lads. Boss Brainbasher's boys.
Thank you, Boss Brainbasher. And Brainbasher's boys are 195 points lower in points value than the Plague Disciples. So that's 3 full lots of 50, so Brainbasher and his boys will get 3 underdog bonuses for this battle. Okay, we're set up, and we rolled for objectives, and we got 5. So as always, I put 1 directly in the centre of the table, in the middle of this ancient ruined religious building, and then we've got 2 towards either flank near to each deployment zone. So nice and evenly spaced out. The Plague Disciples won the deployment roll-off, and they've gone for kind of a refused flank, massing en masse on one particular side of the table. So towards the centre we've got the Plague Drone. In this building under here we've got the Psyker with the Determined, the Plague Brothers, and in front of them we've got a screen of cultists. Next to them we've got the Plague Zombies, and then over here on the right flank we've got the Mutant Plague Brothers. As usual, the destroyers, anything in destroyer armour, is in ambush. The orcs have spread out a lot more. On the extreme right flank we've got this, the goblins, the runts, and we've got the jet wagon ready to head off over for these objectives over here. Towards the centre of their line we've got Odgit and the gangers. We've got Brainbasher with his boys, the Flaming Grabber and the big lads over on the left flank opposite the main force of the Plague Disciples. And then in the centre, the sneaky gits, the commandos, they are scouts, so they deploy last and they get a free 12-inch move, ignoring terrain, and they've managed to get onto the centre objective already. So that's deployment. Let's see what special objectives are for this game. I forgot to say the flyboys, the jetpack orcs, are in ambush for the orcs. Right, let's see what the special objective is for the orcs. 3. Casting. At least 1 attempt to cast or block spells per round. Okay, so the pressure's on Odgit. We'll know how good at casting spells he is. Or isn't. And then for the Plague Disciples, 2. Honour. No enemy units in own deployment zone at the end. Okay, the way they're deployed, I'm not entirely sure that's going to happen, but we'll see. As we go into the first turn, the Plague Disciples will get the first activation because they won the deployment roll-off. At the start of the first turn, is there going to be a random event on a 5+? No. In the first activation, Puskworm Warptongue is going to try and cast Blessed Virus. Ordinary goes on a 4+, he's Psychic 1, so 3+. And that's a pass. So we can choose 2 friendly units within 6 inches to get stealth next time they're shot at. And that's going to be the cultists and the Plague Zombies. And they're kind of penned in there, so that's just going to be the end of that activation, because they can't go anywhere and they can't shoot anything. First activation for the orcs, the jet wagon has rushed forwards heading for objective 3. The Plague Drone, the bringer of bile, has advanced to the edge of this ruin and is just in range to fire its plague sprayers in at the commandos. So ordinarily you'll be hitting on 3s, but the commandos are stealth, so that means we're hitting on 4s. They're also in cover, so hitting on 5s, but 12 shots, 6s are poison, so we'll turn into 3 hits. Okay, so there's a single 5 and a single 6. So the 6 will become 3 hits. I think the orcs are going to use one of their underdog bonuses to turn the 5 into a miss. So it'll still be 3 hits. And you can't modify a 6, because a 6, regardless of modifiers, including underdog bonuses in my opinion, are always successful. So a 6 can never be modified and a 1 can never be modified. That's the rules I use. So 3 saves of 5+ needed. They all fail. So that's 3 of the commandos taken down. They're going to need to take a morale test on a 4+. Which they pass, so the last 2 commandos stand firm. The goblins have rushed forwards onto objective 2. The zombies have rushed forwards onto objective 5. They are slow though, so they can only rush 8 inches. Odgit and the gangers have advanced. They can't rush into that difficult terrain because they don't have Strider, so they've got to the edge of it at least. And now Odgit is going to try and cast Warpath, which is basically the same as the Blessed Virus. So on a 3+ for him because he's Psychic 1. That passes. Hey, Odgit cast a spell. He can pick 2 friendly units within 6 inches and they get stealth next time they're shot at. Now then, the commandos are just within 6 inches of Odgit. However, they've already got stealth, and I can't see anywhere that says that stealth can stack on top of stealth, so it's just going to be the gangers that effectively are going to be affected by it, and obviously Odgit because he's part of that unit. Deacon Gris and the Plague Cultists have advanced, and they're going to open fire on Boss Brainbasher and his boys. All of the models in the firing unit, including Deacon Gris, are quality 5, and the only difference in weapons is the range. So the machine gun has got a slightly longer range. So everything is in range, so this will be a total of 13 shots hitting on 5s. That's pretty good. That's a total of 7 hits. It's almost like 7 is some kind of special number for the Plague Forces, isn't it? 7 saves of 5+ needed. That's 2 saves, so 5 of the orcs will get taken down, so they will still be above half their starting strength because Boss Brainbasher is with them. Enraged by that, Boss Brainbasher and his boys have advanced, and they're going to return fire on the gits that just shot at them. So Boss Brainbasher gets 4 shots with his carbine, and the other lads get 2 shots each. There's 5 of them left, so that's a total of 14 shots. They're all bad shots, so they're all hitting on 5s, plus the target unit has currently got stealth next time they're shot at. So they're going to be hitting on 6s, but Relentless, courtesy of Boss Brainbasher's upgrade, means 6s will result in extra shots. Ooh, just took out the cultist by dropping the die. Let's put him back. That's 3 6s. Could spend an underdog bonus to turn one of the 5s into a 6, but that then wouldn't be a natural 6 to result in an extra shot, but it would still be an extra hit. So I'll do that. One of those 5s will become a modified 6, but the 3 unmodified 6s result in extra shots. So let's turn that one into a 6. These 3 can be the extra shots. They don't convert. So that's 4 hits in total. 5s to save. 3 of them save. And that 2 will regenerate on a 4. Yes, it does. Yeah, I know the decision to give those guys an extra point of regeneration is going to go down really well. So yeah, all that gunfire, no casualties inflicted. But hey, that's orc shooting for you. And plague resilience. The last unit to activate for the plague are the Mutant Brothers, and they have rushed down this back alley. They are fast, so they get a total of 16 inches on their moves when they rush or charge. The Flaming Grabber has rushed forwards. If it's simply advanced, it's mathematically impossible for it to be in range with its flamethrowers, which are, by the way, the most overpowered thing I have come across, and if I'd realised just how nasty it would have been, I would never have put this unit in the army. It's not until I played it in the last game that I realised just how gross it was. Anyway, enough of that. It's rushed forwards, ready for flaming or charging next turn. Very much regretting putting some of this action right onto the edge of the table. But anyway, the big lads have charged the Mutant Brothers that are coming down this back alleyway. One of the big lads can't get into combat, but after the defenders piled in, see, I remembered it this time, very often forget that step, when you charge, the defenders pile in. all of the mutant brothers are now in range for return attacks. But starting off with the big lad with the Ultra Claw, 2 attacks normally, but he's furious, so he gets an extra attack, so 3 attacks hitting on 3s. 2 hits, 6s are nothing special, but these are all at AP 4, so natural 6s needed to save. No. Regenerating on 5+ though. No. So that's 2 of the mutants taken down. Then 9 attacks from the regular close combat weapons hitting on 3s. That's because there's 3 of them in range with 2 attacks each, but an extra attack each because they charged. Again, 6s are nothing special. It's a total of 7 hits. 7 saves of 3+ needed. 2 more fail. I'm going to spend the last underdog bonus to turn one of those 3s into a 2. So we'll then need to make 3 regeneration rolls. So 3 regeneration rolls of 5+. 2 of them regenerate, so there's still 1 of the mutant brothers left. Before the remaining mutant brother makes his return attacks, we need to see what his mutations give him. Okay, so on a 4 to 6, he gets AP -1 on his attacks. 2 attacks hitting on 3s. 2 hits. 5s to save needed. Both fail. So that's 2 of the big lads taken down. The orcs definitely won that combat. 4 injuries inflicted to 2. So the mutant brothers will now need to take a morale test on a 3+, which they fail, so they are routed. And the big lads consolidate 3 inches. The sneaky gits are the last unit to activate for the orcs. They've given in to their natural tendencies and have charged the plague drone. The one armed with the Ultra Claw gets 3 attacks because he's furious, understandably so, he's lost 3 of his lads, and he will be hitting on 4s. 2 hits. AP 4 means we need 6s to save. 2 fail. Do they regenerate on a 5+? No. 2 damage taken. The drone is tough 6. The other commando gets 3 attacks with his close combat weapon because he's furious, and he will hit on 4s. That's only 1 hit. Saves on a 2+. Saves. Like most vehicle type models, the plague drone does not have any close combat weapons. It relies on impact damage to inflict damage in melee. So it's automatically considered to have lost the combat, so it now needs to take a morale test on a 3+, which it passes. So the commandos have to fall back an inch. And that is the end of the first turn. As you would expect, an aggressive push from the orcs, and a more or less equally aggressive push from the plague, where they can of course. And at the moment the orcs are in control of objective 2, objective 3, technically not objective 1 because the commandos charged off it, and objective 4, whereas the plague are in control of objective 5. Going into turn 2, the plague disciples will get the first activation because they finished activating first in turn 1. At the start of turn 2, is there going to be a random event on a 5+? No. At the start of turn 2, Lord Cankerous and the Shrouded have come in from ambush. However, the jetpack orcs are still circling overhead waiting for their opportunity. They're not coming in just yet. The Plague Disciples will get the first activation, and Lord Cankerous and the Shrouded are going to charge the Flaming Grabber. Lord Cankerous now gets 3 attacks with his Great Scythe because he is a fanatic, so he gets +1 attack in melee. That's his experience upgrade. So 3 attacks hitting on 3s. That's 2 hits. 6s are nothing special, but these are AP 4. AP 4, 2 6s needed. 1 6 made. Deadly 3 though, so that's 3 damage through on the Orc Walker. The Orc Walker is tough 12, it's got 9 damage left. 6 attacks from the Shrouded will also hit on 3s. 5 hits. These are AP 2, so 4's needed to save. That's 2 fails. These again are deadly 3, so that's 9 damage inflicted in total. It's got 3 wounds left. Flaming Grabber gets 4 attacks in total with its Walker Claws, hitting on 3s because it's a specialist in melee, so quality 4 plus going to quality 3 plus. 3 hits, AP 4, so natural 6s needed to save. Nope. Do they regenerate on 5s? No, so one of the shrouded is taken down. 2 stomp attacks hitting on 3s. 2 hits. AP 1, so 4's needed to save. 1 saves. Does the other one regenerate on a 5? No, so 1 damage inflicted on one of the other destroyers. So the Plague Destroyers have won that combat. They've inflicted 9 wounds as opposed to the Flaming Grabber's 4. The Walker has the Fear ability, which means it counts as having inflicted D3 extra wounds in combat, but that would only get it up to a maximum of 7, so it was still failed. So it's lost the combat. It now needs to take a morale test on a 4+. Which it passes, and Lord Cankerous and his retinue backing off an inch. So moving on to the Orcs activation, and this is where it gets a bit of a conflict between what is the best thing to do tactically and what would you do if you were an Orc. Because an Orc Walker, I think, would go ploughing back into the destroyers, or at best it would hose them down with its rapid fire heavy flamethrowers. But equally you've got a big mass of zombies just right next to it that are going to come charging in. So from a gameplay point of view, it probably makes sense to flame the zombies, but I don't think that's what the Orc Walker would do. Alternatively, it could simply turn slightly and hose the flamethrowers into those cultists. But again, I don't think that's what they would do. I think Boss Brainbasher would do that because they attacked him last turn. But if I do that next, Boss Brainbasher shooting at the cultists, the Walker's going to get charged by the zombies. And if we hose down the zombies, Boss Brainbasher is going to get shot at by the cultists. So yeah, the sensible thing to do, the tactical thing to do, is for the Walker to backpedal and hose down the zombies. That's what I think. However, it's not very orky, so I'm going to compromise. It's not going to backpedal, but it is going to turn on the spot and then flame the zombies. I hope that's a reasonable compromise for everybody. That's what I'm doing. 24 shots. Hitting on 4s because the Orc Walker is not a bad shot, even though it's an Orc. Don't get it myself. However, hitting on 5s because the Plague Zombies still have stealth on them from the spell that was cast on them last turn. So hitting on 5s, 24 shots. Ooh, ridiculous amount of shots. I think these should only be 6 shots each, but they are 12. It's obscene. Right. Let's count how many that is. Statistically unlikely, but that's 11 hits. Going to need natural 6s to save, because they're 6 up defense and these are AP 1. None, but they do get to regenerate on a 5+. 2. So 9 dead zombies. So there's still 11 zombies left, so they don't need to take a morale test, although they are undead. But we'll cover that as and when it happens. But right here, right now, that's the end of that. Puskworm, Warptongue and the Determined have advanced out of the building. He is going to try and cast Blessed Virus again, which will go off on a 3+, which is a pass on a 5. So, same as before, we're going to give the zombies and also the cultists stealth, so -1 to hit next time they're shot at. And now Puskworm and the Determined are going to shoot at the 2 remaining commandos. Starting things off with the Plague Launcher. It's blast, so it ignores cover, however, it doesn't ignore stealth. So 1 shot will hit on a 4. That's a miss on a 2. 3 heavy rifle shots will hit on 5s. 1 hit. AP1, so natural 6 needed to save. Nope, so one of the commandos gets taken down, and then Plusquam Warp Tongue's own pistol will hit on a 5. It's a miss. The remaining commando will need to take a morale test on a 4+, which he fails, so he's pinned. Boss Brainbasher single-mindedly advancing towards the cultists, and him and his lads are going to fire in. Quality 5+ because they're bad shots, but 6 because of the stealth that's just been cast. So 14 shots hitting on 6s. 6s will generate extra shots courtesy of his Relentless upgrade. That's quite a lot of 6s. That's 6 6s, so 6 more shots going in hitting on 6s. One of them converts, so one more shot goes through. 7 hits in total. 7 saves of 5+ needed. Two successes. Do the other 5 regenerate on 4+? One of them does, so 4 of the cultists are indeed cut down. Cultists are going to return fire. 9 shots hitting on 5s. 3 hits. 5s needed to save. 2 save, 1 more orc dies. That will put them down to half their starting strength, so they will need a morale check on a 4+, because even Boss Brainbasher is only quality 4+. That's a pass. The 3 remaining big lads have advanced into that ruined building. It was so close as to whether or not they could actually charge, because when you go through difficult terrain you're limited to a maximum of 6 inches movement, and it really was close, but I couldn't justifiably say yes they could make it in. So they've advanced and they're going to try and shoot the destroyers in the back. May as well. Right, 3 shots hitting on 5s because they're bad shots. All 3 miss. The plague zombies have charged the walker. They get 2 attacks each. There's 11 of them hitting on 5s. Ooh, big handful of dice. 6 hits. 6s are nothing special. I thought they might have been poisoned, but they're not. 2s needed to save, so definitely fishing for 1s here. There's 1, so that's 1 more damage through on the walker. It's got 2 wounds left. Striking back, hitting on natural 6s, because it's already fought in melee this turn. 4 attacks from the claws. None. 2 stomp attacks. None. Does have fear, however, so it counts as having inflicted D3 extra wounds in melee. For 3. So technically the walker has won that combat. Now the zombies are undead, so they automatically pass morale tests, but you roll 1 dice for each model in the unit, and on a 1 or a 2 they take a wound which can't be regenerated. In other words, on a 1 or a 2 a model will die, because it's a wound, not a hit. If it was a hit you could make a save roll against it, but this is a wound. A wound is what happens after you fail a save roll. And that's 3 dead zombies. And of course they will have to fall back an inch because they didn't vanquish their close combat opponent. The jet wagon has rushed forwards. It's full 16 inches because it's fast. We did just advance it initially, but it had nothing to shoot at, so it went for the rest of the rush. The plague drone has backed off slightly and it's going to try and finish off that last commando. 12 shots will be hitting on 5s, ordinarily hitting on 3s, but the commando is stealthy and it's in cover. 2 hits, but one of them is a 6, so that will turn into 3 hits, plus the additional 1 will be 4 hits in total. 4 saves of 5+ needed. Makes 2 of them, but the last commando is taken down. Oddgit and the gangers have advanced into the centre of that room and onto objective 1, and now Oddgit is going to try and cast Headbang, which will go off on a 4+, ordinary 5+, but he's psychic 1. That's a 5, that goes off. So we can choose 2 friendly units within 12 inches, but there's basically just him and the gangers, and they get rending next time they fight in melee. And the goblins are simply going to hang around on objective 2 until someone big and nasty tells them to do something else. So at the end of turn 2, no change objectives wise. The orcs still hold objectives 2, 3, 1 and 4, and the Plague Disciples still hold objective 5. The action definitely hotting up over on this flank, as you'd expect. As we go into turn 3, the Plague Disciples will again get the first turn because they finished activating first. At the start of turn 3, is there going to be a random event on a 5+? Yes, there is. 14. 14 is Monstrous Spawn. Select a random unit which takes D3 plus 3 hits at AP 1. Right, so first of all, which army? Odds is the Orcs, evens, Plague Disciples. Evens, Plague Disciples. Now we need to work out which unit. What we'll do is we'll go 1 for the Plague Drone, 2 for the Determined, 3 for the Cultists, 4 for the Zombies, 5 for the Destroyers, and a 6 will re-roll. 4, so that will be the Zombies. So D3 plus 3 automatic hits. Ouch! 6 automatic hits at AP 1. So the Zombies are allowed to take a save against this because they're hits, not wounds. So I need natural 6s to save, of which there are none, and they can regenerate on a 5, of which there are 2. So 4 more Zombies die, which will prompt another morale test, except they're undead, so they ignore morale. But we do need to roll a d6 for the 4 remaining Zombies, and on a 1 or a 2, a model will die. And there's a 2, so another one dies. That's random events for you. And the jetpack orcs have come down from ambush in the top left of the screen there, right in behind the Plague Disciples lines. For the first activation, Lord Cankerous and the Shrouded have again charged the Orc Walker. They've come around the back of it a bit to get away from the big lads. 3 attacks from Lord Cankerous will hit on 3s. 2 hits, 6s are nothing special, but these AP 4, so 6s needed to save. 1 fail will destroy the Orc Walker, because they're deadly 3, and it's only got 2 wounds left. That's a fail, the Orc Walker is destroyed. And finally, Lord Cankerous and the Shrouded consolidate onto Objective 4. Boss Brain Bash is having none of that. He's charged in with his lads. He will get 5 attacks with his Ultra Claw because he's furious, and these will hit on 4s. 4 hits, 6s are nothing special. Natural 6s needed to save because of AP 4. That's 4 1s, but do they regenerate on 5s? No, none of them regenerate on 5s. So 2 wounds go on to the wounded Shrouded, which will finish it off, and the other 2 go on to the last of the Shrouded. That's got 1 wound left. Then 8 attacks from Brain Basher's boys, hitting on 4s. Only 1 hit. 3+ needed to save, which is a pass. Lord Cankerous fights back, but he's already fought in melee this turn, so he'll be hitting on natural 6s. None. The last Shrouded also gets to fight back. 2 attacks hitting on natural 6s. None. Oh wait, I forgot Giggles. Giggles the attack beast gets 2 attacks, hitting on 4s. 2 hits. AP 1. 4s needed to save. Nope. Do they regenerate? Yes, they do. Right. Now then. The Plague Destroyers lost that combat, They are at half of their starting strength, so if they fail this morale test, they will be routed. They pass on a 4, and then Brainbasher and his boys fall back. The Plague Cultists have advanced. They've come around this side of Objective 3, staying within 3 inches of it, just in case the shots they're about to put into the jetpack orcs don't do anything. But they are also just out of charge range of the jetpack orcs. So 9 shots hitting on 5s from the Plague Cultists into the jetpack orcs. Four hits. 4 saves of 5+ needed. None. That's 4 orcs taken down. The 1 remaining jetpack orc will need to take a morale test on a 4+, which fails, so he's pinned. The jet wagon has stayed still and it's going to fire all of its weapons in at the plague drone. Ordinarily hitting on 4s, because even though it's an orc, it's not a bad shot. But also it's a specialist, so he gets +1 to shooting rolls courtesy of an experience upgrade. So it's going to be hitting on 3s. 2 shots with a chain RPG. 1 hit. -2, so 4's needed to save. That's a 5, so it saves. 6 shots from the Mega Scrap machine gun. Hitting on 3s. That's a bit better. That's 5 hits. 6s are nothing special. AP1, so 3's needed to save. That's 3 fails. Do the 3 fails regenerate on a 5+? No, so that's 3 more damage taken on the plague drone. That makes 5 wounds taken out of its tough 6. It will need to take a morale check on a 3+, which it fails, so it's pinned. Puskworm, Warp Tongue and the Determined have advanced, heading into these ruins. Puskworm is going to try and cast Blessed Virus, which will go off on a 3+, which fails. He and the Determined are going to fire into the gangers in the ruins. We'll start things off with the Plague Launcher. It's blast, so it ignores the cover that they're in, so 1 shot hitting on a 3. Misses. 3 heavy rifle shots hitting on 4s. 1 hit. 1 save of 6 needed. Fails, so 1 of the orcs is taken down, and I've just realised that they've got stealth on them. Now, just check the footage, and the hit from the rifle is still a hit because it was a 5. 1 pistol shot from Puskworm will hit on a 5. That's a 6, which is a hit. No AP, so 5+ needed to save. That's a save. The 3 big lads have advanced out of that ruined building. Again, can't charge out of there because they can only move 6 inches because of the difficult terrain. So they're going to fire the pistols in at the 3 remaining zombies. 3 shots hitting on 5s because bad shots. They all miss. And I just realised that yellow D6 indicates that they had stealth. So those orcs should have been hitting on 6s, but they missed anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Let's take that D6 away because that's been used up now. And the zombies are going to charge Brainbasher and his boys. Consolidation moves made. 6 attacks from the zombies hitting on 5s. 3 hits. 5s needed to save. That's 2 saves, so 1 of the orcs dies. 2 attacks from Boss Brainbasher coming back, hitting on 6s because he's already fought in melee this turn. This is Ultra Claw, they both miss. Giggles gets 2 attacks, will hit on 6s. Both miss. 3 attacks from the lads, hitting on 6s. All miss. So the orcs lost that combat and they're at less than half strength. So morale chest needed. 4+, which they pass, otherwise they'd have been routed. So the zombies have to fall back an inch. Oddgit and the gangers have advanced, and they're going to fire in with their pistols at the determined. 10 pistol shots, all hitting on 5s. Three hits. The determined are resilient, courtesy of an experience upgrade, so they'll be saving on 2s. Resilient gives them +1 to their defense rolls. All 3 save. And I meant to do this, but I forgot. Oddgit is going to try and cast a spell. He's going to try and cast Headbang. No, he's going to try and cast Warpath, the one that gives them stealth. And that's definitely a pass on a 6. The only unit yet to activate for the Plague Brothers is the drone, so that's simply going to unpin itself. Likewise, the last jetpack orc has simply unpinned itself, and the goblins just staying put on objective 2 again. They've decided there's far too much noise and big bangs and explosions and general danger coming from anywhere else, so they're just going to sit there until someone tells them to do something else. So at the end of turn 3, it's starting to look like the Plague Disciples' plan of making a concerted push on this side and then into the centre hasn't really paid off. The orcs still hold objective 2 and objective 3 and also objective 1 in the middle. The Plague Disciples hold objective 5, but at the moment objective 4 is contested. As we go into turn 4, the last turn, the Plague Disciples will get the first activation again. At the start of turn 4, is there going to be a random event on a 5+? No. At this stage it's really not looking promising for the Plague Disciples. They've only really got one unit that can get onto that central objective to contest it, and that's the Plague Drone. And in order to do that, it would have to rush to get close to it, and then it wouldn't be able to shoot what's on it, in which case it would be easy pickings for those orcs. The determined won't be able to get close enough, and there's a big mob of orcs in the way. And the Plague Drone's only got 1 wound left. It's taken 5 damage out of its tough 6. The other objectives aren't really an option because they're too far away. And over here there's just going to be a big brawl contesting these last 2 objectives. So don't really think it's going to be possible for the Plague Disciples to win this now. But let's play it out and see what happens. The Determined and Puskworm Warptongue have advanced, and Puskworm Warptongue is now going to try and cast Muscular Atrophy. This will go off on a 3+, ordinary 4+, but of course he's Psychic 1. And that's going to cast on a 5. And I've never done this before. I don't think I've ever used a denial or trying to deny a psychic spell. But Oddgit is going to try and deny it, and I think he'll need a 6. Well, that's a total of a 6, isn't it? Because it's 5 and he gets +1, so it's a 6. So yeah, Oddgit will need a 6 to deny it, which he fails. So Muscular Atrophy, target enemy unit within 6 inches rolls as many dice as models in it and takes 1 hit for each 4+. So obviously this is going to be the gangers with Oddgit in it. So this is going to be 10 dice because there's 10 models in the unit. One of the gangers was killed earlier. One, two, three, 4 dice are showing more than 4. So that's 4 hits. Now these are hits, not wounds, so they do get to make a save roll, but they'll need 5s. They make 2 of them. Okay, that didn't go as well as I expected it would. Now the shooting. Plague Launcher, 1 shot, but will hit on a 4. Not because of cover, but because they've currently got stealth. And finally we land one. So that will be Blast 3 and Poison, and I'm reliably informed that that should be 9 hits, but all the way through the campaign I've just been treating it as 6, so I'm going to be consistent and still treat it as 6. Poison multiplies hits by 3, and it's Blast 3. So yeah, I've been adding them 2 together, and apparently it works out as 9 hits. It's been explained to me, I agree with it, but when I originally did it, it was only ever 6 hits, so I'm just going to stick to that for the sake of consistency. 5's needed to save. There's 2 more saves, but 4 more orcs die. 3 rifle shots will hit on 5s because of stealth and cover. 2 hits, Yeah, now we're coming good with the dice rolls. 6s needed to save because of AP1. Nope, 2 more orcs die. And then Puskworm's pistol will hit on a 5. And he misses. But now the Gangers and Odgit will need to take a morale test. Ordinarily quality 4, but Odgit is a chemist, which for some reason gives him +1 to morale tests. So 3+ needed. And they get it. Now obviously the biggest threat to the orcs not being able to win the game is that plague drone with 1 wound left. And I've literally just spotted I didn't move one of the determined. He should be up there with those guys. Right. So the jet wagon is going to fire in at the plague drone. 2 shots from the chain RPG will hit on 3s because it's not a bad shot and it's a specialist in shooting. 2 hits, 6s are nothing special. 4s needed to save because of AP2 and defense 2+. 1 saves, but these are deadly 3, so 3 regeneration rolls needed. 1 is made, but 2 damage goes through, so that will be the plague drone taken down. And I think that effectively scuppers the plague's chances of winning the game. Next activation for the Plague Disciples, Lord Cankerous and the remaining Shrouded are going to charge in on Boss Brainbasher and his boys. See if we can't get some moral victory from taking down the enemy warlord. The Shrouded will attack first. He gets 2 attacks with his heavy scythe, hitting on 3s. That's 2 hits. AP2, so natural 6s needed to save. Nope, so 2 of the orcs are taken down. Lord Cankerous gets 3 attacks with his great scythe because he is a fanatic, so he gets +1 attack in melee. Hitting on 3s. All 3 hit. Natural 6s needed to save. And he made 2, so that last orc is taken down and Boss Brainbasher stands firm. Boss Brainbasher gets 2 attacks with his Ultra Claw, will be hitting on 4s. Both miss. What can Giggles do? 2 attacks hitting on 4s. 1 hit, AP1, so 4+ needed to save. Saves, that's a 6. So the Plague Destroyers have won the combat. So now Boss Brainbasher needs to take a morale test, and if he fails this he'll be routed. He's quality 4+. He's not as brave as those boss mob over there. He fails, so he's going to run away. Or maybe it's Giggles that's got a bit intimidated and he's been dragged away by Giggles. That's a possibility. I mean, Giggles is chained to him. Look at the model, there is a chain that links Giggles to the model. So maybe Giggles has dragged him away because he's realised that his master's in imminent danger of getting killed. So I don't think Boss Brainbasher has died. Yeah, he's just been dragged away by Giggles. Lord Cankerous and the Shrouded consolidating their position on Objective 4, trying to block the big lads from potentially getting close to it. The last remaining jetpack orc is going to advance. He's now contesting Objective 5. And for good measure he's going to throw his pistol shot in at the cultists. He couldn't get quite close enough to be able to charge because the cultists pulled back far enough to make sure they were out of charge range in the last turn. So 1 shot will hit on a 5 because he's a bad shot. That's a miss. The 3 remaining zombies are going to charge the 3 remaining big lads. 6 attacks hitting on 5s. 1 hit. 4+ needed to save. Fails, so 1 of the big lads goes down. The big lad with the Ultra Claw gets 2 attacks hitting on 3s. 2 hits, 6s are nothing special. Natural 6s needed to save. 1 save. Does the other one regenerate on a 5+? No. 2 attacks from the other big lad will hit on 3s. 1 hit, 6s to save. No, do they regenerate? 1 regenerates, so there's still 1 plague zombie left. Big lads won the combat, therefore the plague zombies lost, so they automatically pass morale, but they're undead, so we roll 1d6, and on a 1 or a 2, that last remaining plague zombie takes a hit that can't be regenerated. Sorry, it takes a wound that can't be regenerated. Nope. It stands there, squelching and burbling and doing whatever plague zombies do when they're not dead. But it will have to fall back an inch. Right, so I'm now torn between, again, what is the orky thing to do and what is the tactical thing to do. The orky thing to do is to charge Odgit and the last remaining Ganger into the Determined. However, if they do that and they lose the combat and get wiped out, the Plague Disciples can consolidate 3 inches, which will get them within 3 inches of Objective 1. So the gamey thing to do is not charge the Determined and just shoot at them, which is not very orky. But I think Odgit is no fool. So 2 pistol shots, both hit, because they're bad shots, so they hit on 5s. 2's to save because of the Resilient upgrade on the Plague Disciples. I'm using the wrong dice. Two saves. So yes, a bit of self-control being exercised there by the orcs. More for cinematic purposes than anything else, but the Plague Cultists have reformed their line slightly. The cultist with the machine gun is going to shoot at the last remaining jetpack orc, and the other cultists are going to shoot at the 2 remaining big lads. 3 shots from the machine gun will hit on 5s. Nope, they all miss. 6 rifle shots will hit on 5s. 3 hits. 4's needed to save. All 3 save. And the last 2 remaining big lads have charged around the back of Lord Cankerous and the Shrouded. You should really turn around to face them, really. It's better. Trying to make sure they get the loot. The one with the Ultra Claw, 3 attacks, because he charged and he's furious, but will be hitting on 6s because he's already fought in combat this turn. What was that one? That's a 5. 3 misses. 3 attacks from the other one, just with a close combat weapon, again hitting on 6s. Nope, all miss. Fighting back, Lord Cankerous gets 3 attacks, hitting on 6s because he's already fought in melee. It's 1 hit, natural 6 needed to save, because AP 4, defense 4+. Nope, 2 attacks from the last Shrouded. Will hit on 6s. Nope. The orcs lost the combat. Need a morale test on a 3+. Which they pass. And the orc falls back an inch after getting his weapon tangled up with that scythe. And the goblins are just going to carry on sitting there on Objective 2 because nobody's told them to do nothing else. So at the end of turn 4, the orcs, or rather the goblins, are in control of Objective 2 and Objective 3. They retain control of Objective 1. However, the Plague have lost control of Objective 5. It's now being contested. And Objective 4 is now being contested as well. So the Plague don't hold any objectives. It's a victory for the orcs. So yes, I tried to do a fairly basic battle plan with the Plague Disciples, the idea being concerted pressure on this flank to take and hold those 2 objectives and then push on to Objective 1. But the orcs took a lot longer to clear off that side than I thought. And of course, having that objective right in the middle of some difficult terrain. I'm not sure if you're supposed to put objectives in difficult terrain, but I like having an objective in the centre of the table. Yeah, I like to have the objectives spread out as evenly as I can when I'm playing solo play games. Yeah, that didn't help because they've got pretty much nothing other than the Plague Drone that would have had any chance of getting to it. And that Plague Drone is relatively squishy, being only tough 6. Yes, it's got a 2-up armour, and yes, it's got regeneration, but nevertheless, it's still only tough 6. I could really do with more than one of those. So yeah, the Orcs just had to contest the objectives once I left this flank completely unpressured by the plague. So that was that. It was quite interesting the way that this flank on the right hand side from the plague perspective turned into a big Royal Rumble. Plenty of action going on there, plenty of melee, lots of shooting. Yeah, and the random event that wiped out a good chunk of the zombies probably didn't help the plague either. So the Orcs won the game, so they get 2 more victory points for the campaign and 50 points towards reserves. The Plague Disciples lost, so they get no victory points but 150 points towards their reserves. The Orcs achieved their special objective. They attempted to cast or deny a spell in every one of their turns. Unfortunately, the Plague Disciples did not complete theirs because the jet wagon was just encroaching into their deployment zone at the end of the game. Checking for casualties for the Orcs, so we roll for every unit that was either destroyed or reduced to less than half its starting strength, starting at the back row with the Flaming Grabber, the Orc Walker. Now that's a 4, so that recovers with no lasting injuries. Next up we've got the Flyboys, Jetpack Orcs. That's a 4, they recover with no lasting injuries. We've got the Big Lads. That's a 6, they gain an experience point for recovery. The Sneaky Gits, the Commandos on top right, sorry. They recover with no lasting injuries. Down here to the Gangers. Recover with no lasting injuries. Brain Basher's Boys. Oh, they're going to miss D3 games. They've only got 1 game left. And then Brain Basher himself. He gets an experience point. Experience for the Orcs. So Boss Brain Basher himself has finally leveled up because he recovered from his injury. He now has 5 experience points. Seems to have taken him a long time to get to a level up. Anyway, we're going to roll for his upgrade. 2. So he's going to be either a captain or a support for his skill set. So I think we'll go for captain. The captain skill set. And he's a leader. Friendly units within 6 inches get +1 to morale tests. Then we've got the Gangers. They gain an XP because they survived, even though we just rolled for their casualties. There was still 1 model left at the end of the game, so technically the unit survived. The Flyboys at the back, the Jetpack Orcs, they also survived the battle, and they're now on 5 XP, so we need to roll for them to see what they get. They roll a 1 as well. 1 is Agile, moves +1 inch on advance and +2 inches on rush and charge. I think that makes sense. They have got rocket packs after all, jetpacks. It's always annoyed me that units with fly, infantry with fly, just simply move over terrain without hindrance. They don't move twice as far. I think they should be fast as well. I think fly should incorporate fast, but that's just me. Anyway, next we've got the Runts. They get 1 XP because they survived the battle, putting them on 8. Odd Git, the Shaman, he survived the battle, so he gets 1 XP as well, putting him on 7. The Jet Wagon destroyed the Plague Drone and also survived the battle, putting it on 7 in total. And then the Big Lads, they had a good game. They killed the Plague Mutant Brothers, they survived the battle, and they recovered from the injury. It sounds like a bit of a contradiction, but yes, they've now got 3 experience points. Roll of casualties for the Plague Disciples, starting on the top left with the Shrouded. So they were reduced to half their starting strength, so we need to roll for them. They recover with no lasting injuries. Got the Plague Drone. Oh, that's going to miss the last game. And then we've got the Mutant Brothers. They recover with no lasting injuries. And then finally the Plague Zombies. Recover with no lasting injuries, as any good zombie would. experience for the Plague Disciples, starting things off with Lord Cankerous in the middle at the back. He's getting yet another experience upgrade. He got 5 XP in that game. He killed Brainbasher's boys. He technically killed Brainbasher, even though Brainbasher simply failed his morale test. It counts as a kill for experience purposes, and that's worth 2 points because he's a character. He and the Shrouded destroyed the Walker, and then he survived the game. So that puts him on 15 XP. And the last skill he can take in his skill tree, because he's a fighter, he's already got Duelist and Fanatic, so he will now be a Berserker as well. Enemies get -1 to morale tests when in melee with the hero. Next up, the Determined. They survive the battle, they get 1 XP. The Plague Drone should technically get 1 XP for destroying the commandos, but because it's technically dead and it's missing games, because we don't do permadead in this campaign, yeah, it loses all of its XP because it didn't survive the casualty round. Next up, we've got the Faithful. They survived the game, so they get 1 XP, which puts them onto 5, so they now get an upgrade as well. Number 3. I think that's Specialist. Yeah, Specialist. +1 to either melee or shooting. We'll go for shooting. Deacon Grist next. He survived the battle, so he's now on 3 XP. Next to him we've got the Psychic Puskworm Warp Tongue. He survived the battle, so he's got 2 XP. Then at the back left we've got the Shrouded, the Plague Destroyers. Again, just like Lord Cankerous, they were involved in all of the battles, all of the fights and skirmishes that he was involved with, and they get exactly the same experience because they also survived. So 1 XP for killing Brainbasher's boys, 2 for helping kill Brainbasher, or at least force him off the battlefield, 1 for killing the Walker, and 1 for surviving. So that puts them on 9 experience, so they get an upgrade as well. 5. They're now elite. They can make 1 reroll of any kind once per game. And then last but no means least, Plague Zombies. They survived, they get 1 XP. Reinforcements for the Plague Disciples. These are the Risen, another combined unit of 20 Plague Zombies. And you can tell the difference between these and the Bearers because these have got green slime on the bases, whereas the Bearers have got kind of yellowish ochre coloured slime on their bases. The Orcs had 185 points in total to spend, so I spent 175 of them on Dodaka-lads. These are Specialist Orcs upgraded with railguns. So at the end of that round of the campaign, here's how it stands for victory points for the campaign. The Orcs are currently in the lead with 9 points. The HDF are next with 5 points. Then in joint last place we've got the Plague Disciples and the Soul Snatcher Cult, both on 4 points. They've all got 1 game left to play, which means nobody can catch the Orcs in terms of victory points. And that's how they're going to be matched up in the next round as well. The Orcs will be playing the HDF and the Plague Disciples will be playing the Soul Snatcher Cults. If the Plague Disciples had won that game, that last game, then the Orcs would have been on 7, and the HDF, if they'd won the next game against the Orcs, they would also have been on 7 at the end of the campaign. But sadly that is not to be. I shall work out in my mind how that's going to play out in the narrative. But the next game will be the Plague Disciples up against the Soul Snatcher Cult. And until next time, I hope you've enjoyed this one. I actually enjoyed playing that one. Didn't pan out as I expected, but I still had a lot of fun playing it. Thank you again for all your support and your kind words and encouragement in the comments. It's very much appreciated. So please continue to like, comment and subscribe. And until next time, God bless.